Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for June 14, 2023 to order. The time is now 7:04. Apologize for starting a few minutes late. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item C is our roll call of council members. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton?
Here.
Councilmember Ruxmith?
Here.
Councilmember Correas?
Here.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Hulse?
Here.
Councilmember Molinar?
Here.
Councilmember Morales?
Here.
Thank you so much. Under community comments, item 1 is a review of emails from the public. I will ask Peter Donovan if there were emails sent to email address communitycomments@mountvernon.gov. Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Council. Yes, you had 2 emails sent to you in the last few weeks to be read this evening. One of those was sent by Mr. Arthur Huff, who is here tonight. So he's going to address you directly, and it said it was all right if we pass on reading that one out loud. So the one email left to read is from Gary Shelby, and he writes, "Hello, City Council. My name is Gary Shelby, and I'm currently being harassed and racially discriminated against at Skagit Valley College. I'm the founder and president of Black Student Union. I have not been allowed to register and also stripped of student housing. Now the student housing director is trying to get a trespass order against me with no crimes being committed." And those are all of your public comments.
Okay, thank you. Item 2 under our community comments is for those who are here in person. So you're welcome to step to the podium at this time. If you would state your name and city of residence. Comments 3 to 5 minutes would be great, so I'll ask you to come forward at this time. All right.
My name's Arthur Huff. Bear with me today, for I really didn't expect to say much more than a minute or two, and I hope it stays that short.
Okay.
I haven't really public spoke since I got out of the Navy
No
in
worries.
1994. Anyway, I live at 4014 Creek Place in Mount Vernon, Washington, 98273. I've lived there for 29 years, and resident of Mount Vernon for over 34 years. I recognize one of you, and I've spoken to another one of the councilmen online. I want to thank the mayor and the city council for letting me speak today. I did decide not to have him read the comments because my email was written at 3 in the morning, and I was tired, and it sort of dragged on. So I do apologize for that, but I hope you consider the content of my email. It's very important to me. Excuse me. I haven't spoken. I also want to thank the mayor and the city council if they could possibly amend the chicken ordinance to make a specific number of chickens more appropriate for a community, residential community. I've spoken to many of my neighbors. I don't know them personally except for 2 of them, but each and every one of them agreed with me that my neighbor has 19 chickens. It's a bit much for a nice residential community. I wasn't going to talk more than a minute, but I want a few more seconds. Mm-hmm. I moved to Mount Vernon because I love Washington. And I was lucky enough to have Marlene Riggins as my landlord, which is a relative to one of, hopefully I can mention Gary here. It was his mother. And she was the most special lady. She was, I think, a long-term resident of Mount Vernon. But when I retired from the Navy in 1994, my wife and I opened a bike shop, and we loved it. It was hard work, and I finally retired early due to physical back problems. But I built my house in 1994 in Creek Place, the last house to be added to that area. Pretty much the only lot available except for the one next door. And they built a Rambler at that address, and I got a 2-story. We have a beautiful, beautiful town, and my neighborhood is one of the nicest places to live. I have lived there, and not once have I complained about anything. No one has ever made a sound, none of my neighbors. No one has ever had a concern. And I know I'm overly sensitive about this subject. It's because I was born and raised on a farm. And if I can mention chickens for 1 second, they defecate 8 to 12 pounds per month, uncontrollable. And there's a lot of work to pick up and clean all the chicken and also the bedding from the coop. So if an owner chooses not to maintain his property, I'm sitting there waiting for rodents and possibly even odor because the wind prevails and blows in my kitchen and my bedroom window and my son's bedroom window. And we don't have air conditioning. We just never chose to put it in our house. So I hope the council can look at the ordinance and maybe get it possibly changed, hopefully, and more in line with, I'll mention other cities in Washington have a very low limit of chickens. If you could please look at that when you make your considerations, I would really appreciate it. And I appreciate your time today. If there's any research that you would want me to provide, trust me, I've spent hours understanding what's going on, and it was very difficult to find an ordinance that actually covers this. We have animal control ordinance, which was put into the paperwork. But the part about the chickens was sort of built up, but never quite finished. And I know I'm repetitious, I apologize. Please consider this change to the ordinance and whatever goes along with it. And Melissa has my email address. Gary probably even still has my phone number from when I owned the bike shop. But thank you guys so much, and I do apologize. Like I said, it's been since 1994 that I spoke in an open, 1990, I'm sorry, I retired in 1990. It's been since 1990 that I've spoke to anybody in public other than at my bike shop. And it's easy to talk to customers when you love bicycles.
You did
I'm
great,
so sorry,
Arthur.
thank you.
You did great, Arthur. Thank you
guys
so
are
much.
wonderful.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry if I'm loud, I don't always recognize with my ears.
No worries.
Thank you.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I'll listen for a while.
Oh, absolutely. Peter, do you have?
Yeah, I apologize. I have one other community comment. This one was sent to council on June 1st, and it's from Danny. And Danny wrote, I read that Mount Vernon is getting a new industry that'll be hiring 60 workers. Unfortunately, we currently have now hiring signs everywhere. It's my understanding that Continental and Walgreens have been operating for a long time short of total employment. A lot of our other businesses, especially the fast food, sometimes can't open their dining room or business at all because there's not enough workers. I don't know how adding more jobs in our city will accomplish anything until people start going back to work. I talked to the chamber once about our employment problem, found out they've had work fairs in the past and no one shows up, even some of the businesses that need more employees. I wish said new industry the best of luck finding employees to staff their production. But until then, I don't think adding more industry is the solution for filling the job openings Mount Vernon already has. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. All right, we'll go back to,
May I interrupt? I want to give one more thank you. Your executive assistant, I believe?
oh,
She
Carrie.
is so wonderful. I want to give her office.
Thank
She is
you.
special.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you.
All right. Any other community comments? You're welcome to, please, yeah, go ahead and step up. If you please state your name for the record and city of residence, and comments about 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Miles Becker. I live in Ward 2 of Mount Vernon. I wanted to speak in favor of the council following the Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt new code for tree preservation in the city. Trees are a really important part of city life for people that live here. They do a lot of things for us. They filter pollutants, they make land more valuable, they provide cooling during the summer, all kinds of things. There's a lot of research really linking human health to healthy urban forests. Currently, there's at least in my neighborhood, there's a lot of tall trees and they're being cut down on private property rather rapidly. And the time that it would take to replace them would probably go beyond my lifetime. And I'm not, well, my age is, I'm not that old. So anyways, it would take a long time to replace. And I think that we have an opportunity to take some action, even if it's a very small change to ag code to protect the trees that we do have. The city can do a lot to plant new trees and protect trees on their property, like parks and public right-of-way, but something like over 80% of the parcels within the city are privately owned, which means that probably more than half the trees are privately owned and managed. And so if, not everyone's cutting down the trees, but if a good portion are, then the canopy is going to slowly shrink and shrink and shrink, and we're going to lose those benefits. So, something as simple as saying a tree above a certain size needs to be evaluated before it can be taken down. I know in my neighborhood that there's a block where there's only about 12 trees that are really nice Doug fir trees on the whole block, and one homeowner turned a bunch of them into big poles. I think he's taken the rest of them down, but right now it's just it looks like a telephone pole factory. But he's going to, I asked why the reason for taking down the trees, and I think the answer that was provided was maybe not well informed, and yet as a result of that, the whole neighborhood, the whole block is now without a lot of tree canopy. So we already have in place zoning code that enforces what people do with their real estate on private property to help ensure that we have a look and a feel to our neighborhoods that are sort of consistent with what we want Mount Vernon to look like. And I think adding tree protection to that would be sort of follow, it's not setting any precedent. This has been done in other cities like Oak Harbor or Stanwood or other small towns in Western Washington are doing a similar thing to protect their resource. So I just want to advocate for trees, and that it wouldn't take very much to make a small change to have a big effect on our urban canopy, and start thinking about long term and what Mount Vernon will look like in 20 to 30, 40 years down the road. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Miles. All right, any other public comment? Come on up. Again, if you could state your name and city of residence for the record.
Robin Riggins Mari. I live in Mount Vernon, Washington. I live near one of the rare pockets of tall old trees in the city, and a lot of what was there 50 years ago, when my parents built our house, is now gone, but this stand that's left has been relatively stable for up until the past few years. And increasingly, we're actually in the same neighborhood, so we're speaking about kind of the same chunk, to, full disclosure, to let you know that. More and sometimes all of the trees on a property are being cut down, and obviously unhealthy or dangerous trees need attention, but this is what's left is a mostly healthy stand. And we all know what we lose when this happens is shade and cooling for our homes, habitat for animals and birds, and cover for the nearby streams. The stability and health of the neighboring trees are impacted, and there is a unique, appealing environment that is created when we have these old trees that is kind of unusual in the city. And I think that a lot of people really treasure and value that. I know I do. and it just, I've been watching the last couple of years, and it just takes so little time to cut down a tree. And once it's gone, it is gone forever. And there is no way in our lifetimes to replace trees of this age or size and to recover those benefits that we have just lost in, such a short time. So I came, I'm super nervous to be standing up here,
You're
but I
doing just
came
great, Rob.
to speak up for not only my neighborhood, but also the city I grew up in, and hope to support a way of preserving what's left, especially given the rapid pace of their removal recently, and also the appearance of some possibly predatory contractors who I think are scaring people into taking down more trees or more of a tree than is really necessary. And so I hope this can happen, and thank you so much for the chance to talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, anyone else for public comment?
Hi, I'm Bob Gillespie. I live at 2021 North LaVenture Road near the Skagit Valley College. So I'm here to talk about the importance of trees in urban ecosystems. I'm a retired entomologist, and I'm trying to help people preserve native plants for pollinators and birds and other wildlife population. So I don't know if you had a chance to see the June 11th PBS news clip on the decline in bird populations. They had talked to Brooke Bateman from the Audubon Society, and she was saying that since 1970, we've lost about 3 billion. The population of birds has dropped by 3 billion. And there's concern about that if we don't intervene, that we could lose two out of 3 species could go extinct. So there's real concern about the bird populations and how that fits into the preservation of trees for the area. And so what I'd like to talk about is the fact that she attributed this decline to a loss of habitat, climate change, and a decline in food sources, such as native plant seeds and also insects. Like I said, I'm a retired entomologist, so insects are very, very important to me. And if we can protect the trees, we can help preserve this bird population and provide them with habitat and food sources. And another thing is a healthy bird population would help reduce our insect pest populations and have to rely less on other control measures like broad spectrum insecticides. The other thing that's important is the aesthetics appeal of all of this, that I think all of us enjoy looking at native plants, native trees, and all of the wildlife that's associated with it. So I'd like to encourage the city to try to preserve this habitat as much as possible. And the other thing is that some of our native deciduous trees, they provide pollen and nectar for our bees that emerge very, very early in the springtime, like the bumblebees and some of the mining bees. And so this is an important pollen and nectar source for these particular bees. So these are one of the reasons why I think urban ecosystem and urban habitats are very, very important for a beautiful city like Mount Vernon, that we want to conserve and preserve this beauty and this ecosystems that we have that we're associated with it. So I appreciate having the chance to talk to you about this, and hope you have a good evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, anyone else here tonight?
My name is Sheila Shante. I live in Mount Vernon. I live on LaVenture, South LaVenture, south of Division and north of Broadway. And I am concerned about some of the sort of natural spaces that haven't been bulldozed, cemented, and asphalted yet. And I don't want them to be. There's a patch right across from my apartment that's just a natural forest. You know, it's got trees, it's got, you know, I haven't been in there, but I just love seeing this one patch of place, of wild place is probably what the whole land looked like before, you know, we all showed up. But it's really important for, you know, like we said, birds and insects, but it's also important for just not for things to go extinct. It's good for the land, it's good for the ground, it's good for the water. And I just, you know, think we need to protect those few patches of sort of natural landscape that is not, you know, it's not planted, it's just, it's there, it's living, and it has value. So that's my concern, and you know, and having, you know, fields that are not maybe mowed, and which allows for a more variety of plants and trees to happen. If everything is, you know, mowed, you know, and with a lot of insecticides and you know, plant fertilizer and all that kind of stuff, you know, if we can just at least save the patches that that are left untouched, they know what to do. The plants that are there, the trees that are there, they know what to do if we just let them and leave them be and let them continue. And I don't know if it's on private property, I don't know who owns that land, but I think that they need to be preserved. Maybe, you know, maybe like a park that is untouched. Can you have a park that's untouched, that is just a place for trees, for us to enjoy and for it to be helpful to our, you know, total environment? So that's my concern.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, thank you, those that came for public comment tonight. We're going to go ahead and move along to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda tonight is items A, B, and C. This is council meeting minutes, payroll, checks, claims, and direct deposit.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, under reports tonight, we have two committee reports. First up is our Public Works and Library Committee report. That's Councilmember Gary Molinar. Gary.
Okay, we opened up the Public Works and Library Committee tonight at 6 o'clock after the approval of the May 10th meeting minutes. Blaine Chesterfield gave us an update. The committee received an update on the Stokely Tower Foundation Caps project, which will ensure the stability of the big tower downtown. On Thursday, May 11th, the city received 4 bids. The lowest responsive bid was from Scocon LLC for $39,000, and the engineer's estimate was $60,000, so that was a very good bid. The pre-construction meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 20th. The Park Street stormwater pump station is now over 80 years old and in need of renovations. Our staff is working on an on-call consultant, HDR Engineering, on the scope of the work and budget. The goal is to have about 30% plans completed this year and a final plans by the end of 2024. The design budget for 2023 will require an increase of $110,000, or actually $111,000, for a total of $211 due to geotechnical consultant requirements that came up with that project. The city and the Skagit Fisheries Enhancement Group have been working on a cooperative planting project on the Skagit River and wastewater treatment plant. More than 4,700 trees and shrubs have been planted at the site this year. This includes 31 volunteer hours, and these people contributed 93 hours of their time. Washington Conservative Corporation also worked on this site, and the plants will be maintained for survivability through 2026. Next, Bill Bullock gave us some project updates. The curb ramp program has finished on Division and North 18th and Anderson Road. They are currently in progress for their final work on 6th and Lawrence. Expect to be fully completed by the end of June. Our paving program has begun on East Division Street from Waugh to roundabout to the city, as a lot of people have noticed. Limits paving to be finished this week. Next sections will be 18th from Fur to College Way and Anderson Road from Old 99 to I-5. There will also be, after that, 35th and Fox Hill Lane will also be paved. The Hogue LaVenture Signal Project has also begun and is due to be completed by the end of July. The city will be hiring consultant services from structural engineering group Transtech Engineering to investigate and propose a solution to repair the structural earth wall culvert, which is by Eaglemont Drive, which had suffered settlement damage of unknown cause. Next, we had Isaac Huffman, our librarian, give us some quick highlights on the Mount Vernon Library Commons project and funding efforts, as well as some general library updates. One of those updates that everybody seems to want to know is when is the library going to open, and that is going to be right now, opening in the spring of 2024. He also gave us some updates on summer reading, veteran services that are available through our library, science education, and some interesting new collection items. We then went to the good of the order. We talked about the possible opportunity with Best Western on the purchase of that property, but that is no longer available or an option. And we close the meeting at 6:59.
All right, thank you, Gary. Next up is a committee report from our Public Safety Committee, and this time that will be Councilmember Melissa Beaton.
Thank you, Mayor. So we had a Public Safety Committee meeting last Wednesday evening, and first up, we had a overview of from our fire department on our apparatus in the fire department. So first up, with the replacement criteria of our, by apparatus, I mean our fire engines and things like that. That's just that fancy term. So generally speaking, the life cycle of our vehicles, fire engines, and ambulances is around 120,000 miles. Specifically with vehicles, it's anywhere between 8 to 10 years. Fire engines, it's around 12 years, and ambulances, due to the wear and tear, is 8 years. With our current vehicles, there's 2 engines that are a 2012 and a 2017, 3 medics that are 2014, 20, and 21, and then we have 2 engines and 8 cars in reserves. So where are we with our equipment replacement? There's a lot of challenges, surprise brought on by COVID, and then it's just kind of morphed from there. But previously, it took anywhere from 14 to 41 months, depending on the vehicle, medic or engine. Now it's taking 3.5 to 5 years from the time of ordering. There is a new program that the department is looking at that would process our vehicles around 30 months, and the department is exploring that. It's just, everything's just taking longer. They do have an action plan. First up, we're looking at ordering the medic unit in October. Why October, you ask? Because Ford will be opening the allocations for the chassis at that time, and so that's when we will do that. And you pay upon delivery, which is about 3.5 years. Next up will be a fire engine in 2024, hopefully to utilize the new program, which will streamline our personalization. They are looking at replacing 2 gas-powered vehicles with hybrid electric vehicles, so that's really good. And then, of course, the revenue generated from the sales of our vehicles will go back into the fire department capital needs fund. Next up, we reviewed key pieces of our fire code, which is driven by the international fire and building codes, state law, and our own local code. There's many different factors that go into how we get to our code. In addition to those, there's risk factors, there's population density, response capabilities. So we discussed, from there, we went on and talked about our local sprinkler code because, we went on to talk about our local fire sprinkler code that is required for all new buildings of 5,000 square feet or more. We also have a local fire alarm system code that requires for all non-sprinklered commercial buildings, 2,500 square feet or more, you need to have an alarm system. It's driven by more people, it's driven by use, more people, the more life safety needs that you need. The fire alarm system is only, or for tenant improvements, it's only required if you change the use of the building. Let's see, what else did we talk about here? The department takes into account the response capabilities, and so, you know, we have to weigh the cost of, you know, having this code helps us because there's cost to, you know, think about if we had 2 simultaneous fires in the city. The human resource, the financial resource of that. So these codes, these measures help contain that. And they are also driven from like cities, populations, similar cities, not necessarily here in the county, but like cities. And so just think about it's preventative. It's there for life safety. Finally, we got an update on the 4th of July. That is right around the corner. And our city departments began incident action planning about a month ago. A couple of those departments happen to be our fire department, police department, parks and rec. You're going to notice soon signage is going up on our arterial streets that talk about legal versus prohibited fireworks and the hours. There's information going out on social media, local radio stations in both English and Spanish, and it's citywide. There will be additional staffing. In fact, I don't think anybody gets the night off. There's no request there that will be filled. Dry weather is considered, but regardless of what the dry weather is, there's certain criteria like wind speed. If the wind speed picks up more than 10 miles an hour, then we won't be able to have our fireworks show over the river. And that's because that wind picks up, it changes the trajectory of those fireworks, and it can cause some damage. Patrols will also pick up beginning 7/1 and will go on through 7/4. So just a good rule of thumb, if it goes up and blows up, it's illegal. Please don't bring those into our city. The fireworks that are in our city are what are classified as safe and sane. They don't leave the ground, they don't go up in the air and light things on fire. So please be a good citizen and neighbor and be respectful of our city ordinance. And then we talked about having a public safety meeting again on, we always have the first Wednesday of the month, but this first Wednesday of this next month is the 5th, which happens to be the day after fireworks. And so, you know, given the high intensity jobs that our fire and police department does, we've decided that we're going to give them the night off, and so we will not have a committee meeting on July 5th. So with that, we adjourned around 7:15.
All right, thank you so much. Item B tonight under reports is our council member comments. Is there any council member comments this evening?
I'd just like to thank Councilmember Beaton for filling in for me last week so I could take my wife out to her birthday dinner.
Very nice. All right, we'll go to the mayor's report then. So as usual, we're doing Mount Vernon Library Commons construction update. So the photograph that you see on the screen right now, if you look closely, it's not on the ground. It's actually higher up in the air. So this is a photo of the first elevated deck, post-tension slab deck pour. So we're getting on our second story. The final slab on grade, which is the bottom floor, occurred on Monday. This pour they're working on right now includes the ramp that will be going up to access the parking structure above the library and community center. So that's exciting. Activities like this are going to be through early September, focusing, of course, on sequential decks. So number 2 and number 3 and the roof. There will be, of course, temporary traffic revisions as we pour concrete. So we ask for continued patience and just flat out excitement about the project taking shape over the next couple of months. I wanted to just mention the North Star project and thank council members that attended our session last evening. Councilmember Brocksmith, Carillas, Hudson, Host, Beaton, I think all were able to make it. And just outline a couple of things that the North Star group has accomplished over the last year of meeting. This is the first time the cities and the county government have sat down together to collaborate and talk about moving forward things to better serve our unhoused community, the homeless issue, behavioral health, and housing as well. So we spent a lot of time sitting down, learning and discussing things and how to move forward with each other. And that's just building collaboration and trust and aligning goals within jurisdictions. We adopted what's called the Vital Conditions Framework at work through the Robert L. Johnson Foundation about what communities need to thrive. We all tend to focus on the crisis things, and if we also balance that with focusing on what communities need to thrive, you can actually lessen the burden on crisis response, which I think is a great approach. So we've accomplished naming a leadership team, the North Star Advisory Group, which brings in a lot of our nonprofits as partners. We conducted and completed a countywide assessment, of mapping the care system. You know, what exists today for folks that are either on the street or needing these services? Where are the barriers? And there's a lot of red X's and broken systems and pathways in that mapping, but we've never really done that before, to sit down and isolate what do we need to work on as an entire group. The jurisdictions collaborated over what we're calling the NOFA. What that is there's a amount of funding that comes directly to Skagit County for homeless and behavioral health services, and they have never asked the cities what priorities are or asked us to be part of that, and we were able to do that this year. That collaboration actually was incredibly important. The county was looking at a reduction of 50% in funding to those services, which meant 50% of all those organizations that provide services would have had no money. With the collaboration and the city council's decisions to help in that effort, they were able to add another $900,000 to save a lot of those services. And so thank you to our city council for being part of that. Gelada, it's a funny term. I thought it was spelled differently than it is. But what that is it's a community-wide united software platform that helps our first responders that are out on the street doing case management, our social work program, other communities, paramedic programs, all be able to talk to each other, all have the information there. It's not like they're contacting one person and doing an assessment again, and doing an assessment again, and doing an assessment again. This really helps that collaboration, and we know will make it much more efficient to assist people. The next slide is interface with the Housing Authority of Skagit County. When we talk about housing, the Housing Authority has that responsibility in their name. And we have discovered that deploying HUD vouchers is not to a standard that the community deserves. So this group is interfacing to achieve some better efficiencies with our housing authority. We also heard from our advisory group that the coordinated entry system could need some revamping. So there's a request for proposals for a new coordinated entry provider. And that formatted the Coordinated Entry Task Force. Exactly what do we want, and build a new system there. Housing Work Group, right now they're sharing ideas, they're defining what collaboration can occur, really taking into account what jurisdictions like the City of Mount Vernon's responsibilities are around our comprehensive planning. So just trying to decide where the collaboration can occur and encouragement. And then finally, some great news, advocating to the legislature as a group. Was able to receive $12.7 million of an allocation for phase 2 of a crisis stabilization center, and that's a behavioral health center that's being built in toward the Cedar-Woolley area. So when you've got letterheads of all 4 cities and the county, it's powerful, and it tells a story to our legislators about what's important to us and what we all support. So just proud of that work as the group continues. Again, the very first time the cities and counties have collaborated together. And so I'm hoping our community is proud of us for sitting down and working through the betterment of our community around those topics. All right, item D tonight is our committee agenda requests, and I think we may have one about
Oh, gosh, I
Chickens?
don't, oh, yes, yes, absolutely. I do want to take a look at our chicken ordinance,
All right.
specifically because at the moment, it's unlimited chickens, and me being a cat lover, well, I can only have 6. So,
That's enough, Melissa.
no, it needs to, we need to take a look at it, so please add that.
Absolutely. We'll be adding that to another committee agenda to take a look at our existing ordinance and what we could do to improve it.
Maybe we need to look at our cat ordinance. 6?
They're rescues.
Right, any other committee agenda request? All right, thank you for that. We'll get that on our calendar. All right, there is no unfinished business tonight. Item A in our new business, we have a legislative session review, and we're very pleased to welcome Representative Alex Rammel, who represents us at the 40th Legislative District. He has served in that capacity since January of 2020, and he was recently, this last session, elected by his colleagues to be the majority whip, so that's a significant leadership position for Alex, so we're thrilled with that. He happens to also be, in his other job, president of the Colshan Community Land Trust. Is that correct?
That's a few years in the past.
Okay, then I will ask you if you want to add anything more about your background, but we're thrilled to welcome him today to just recap the most recent 2023 legislative session. So, Alex, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for that kind introduction. Good evening, Council. It's good to see you. So I'd just like to try and stop by after the legislative session, and I really think about state government and local government as, two parts that ought to be working as closely together as we can. And so part of that is hearing from you about what your priorities are, and then part of that is, an opportunity to check in and talk about how we did on trying to deliver some of those priorities. And then, throughout both the interim and the legislative session, keeping an open door. So this is just, again, an invitation to all of you to reach out anytime that you've got a question or an issue that you think the state government could be working on. We really are here to represent you and work with our local government partners. And I will also just say, it's just me up here tonight. It's June. It's beautiful outside. I tried to get some of my colleagues to come and join us too. But that data point aside, our team really does work very well together. Both the 40th District team, I think we stay very coordinated, thinking about things like, committee assignments, so we're spread out across the legislature and have a voice in as many rooms as possible for this community. But we also work closely with our colleagues in the 10th, just to our south, and in the 39th to the east, where, when we have to go in and ask for big things, like support for the Crisis Stabilization Center, it was all 9 of us working together to advocate for that. And so it is good teamwork, both across chambers, House and Senate, across district boundaries, and across the party lines as well. And I think Skagit County is well represented in terms of our ability to, try to work together for the betterment of the community. So I will say, my hope here was to just cover a couple of things that I spoke with some of you about during the legislative session or before the session. I'll do my best to cover those things in, maybe 10 minutes if that's okay. I'll do my best. And then if you've got additional questions, happy to try to answer those. And if I can't, I'm happy to get back with answers later on. So I was going to talk a little bit about housing policy. That's tip of everybody's tongue. Law enforcement policy. There were a couple of things that were important in this community and heard from you all about. Some local projects, although already have some good updates. And then wanted to just touch on Climate Commitment Act as that relates both to sort of funding possibilities and where things are at, how that's sort of rolling out. So starting off with housing policy, I will say that the legislature started this year, and most of us were in agreement that this was going to be the year for housing. We had a report that the Lieutenant Governor's office put out last year that told us that we're about 250,000 homes behind where we ought to be. That if you count the ratio of homes to number of households in Washington, we're about 250,000 short. That puts us, as of last year, at number 50 in the country. And this year, I think we're 49. We've got work to do. We don't have enough homes for the people who live here. That's driving housing costs. That's making it difficult for businesses to recruit new employees. That's driving up the cost of rental properties. And it's, it's a challenge in many different sectors. You're all familiar with this. So I try to think about our housing crisis in three broad categories. I think we had success in some and less success in others. The three categories I think about this in is supply. How many homes do we have, and how do we get more homes built in the right places? I think we had a good year on housing supply. I think also about support. So there's going to be folks for whom market rate housing is not going to be the right solution. It's never going to be the solution for them, whether that's folks in crisis because of substance abuse or behavioral health or disability, et cetera. Those kinds of challenges. We ought to have supportive housing for those folks, and we don't have enough of it right now. I think we had a good year, but not a great year that we could have had in terms of that. And then the third bucket is stabilization. So depending on where you are, plus or minus, about 40% of people in Washington state are renters and don't have the same stability that folks like me who own a home have in terms of my ability to predict what my costs are going to be next year, my stability in my community that predictability affords. And I heard over and over and over last year, walking around neighborhoods here in Bellingham, throughout the district, and heard from colleagues around the state about folks who are experiencing enormous increases in their rent, out of proportion with the cost of providing that housing. And I think we ought to stabilize rents for folks, and we did not get that done this year. And so my commitment is to come back next year. So just in terms of some specific bills on housing supply, I think we have given you all a lot of work to do in the coming years, passing the missing middle housing policy that will that requires local governments to have a plan to allow more types of what we call middle housing, row houses, townhomes, that kind of thing, into more existing neighborhoods where there's access to transit, where there's access to those existing services. We've also passed policy that opens the door or requires local governments to have a plan to open the door more to more accessory dwelling units. That's a way, I believe, to allow another form of housing that is smaller and less expensive to build and hopefully less expensive to provide as an option for folks. So we've done a number of things in that category, as well as things that are sort of aimed at trying to figure out how do we reduce the cost of building housing. Some of that is like we're going to require the State Building Code Council to allow apartment complexes up to, I think, 5 stories to have a single stairway and a fire egress. Right now, you have to have 2 stairways. It's a big driver of cost and form for those. So little things like that that I hope will make it easier for builders to provide more kinds of housing. And the other piece that we did here this year that I think is important was we increased both the eligibility threshold and the criteria for folks who qualify for the senior disability property tax exemption. So we knew that there was kind of a cliff because of the rising cost of living and how that was affecting Social Security. Folks who had qualified for that last year, if we didn't change anything, wouldn't qualify for it next year. So we updated that standard so that folks who rely on that to be able to afford to stay in their home will be able to continue to do so. The last thing I'll say here is that we made a big investment in the Housing Trust Fund. So that's the source of revenue that the state uses oftentimes to match local dollars to develop affordable housing projects, and whether that's Mercy Housing, community land trust, housing authorities, they're able to apply to that housing trust fund and build the housing that our community, the supportive housing that our communities need. We put more money into that than we ever have before, $400 million. That's a big chunk. It is not going to meet the need, and that's why I say we did well, but not as well as I wish we would have. My commitment to you all and to everyone else is to come back next year. I believe we need dedicated revenue to be able to fully fund that housing trust fund. So that's what I'll say on housing, and I'm probably going to run over my 10 minutes. I apologize, Mayor. On police policy, law enforcement policy, just a couple of things to touch on. I think one of the most impactful things that we were able to do this year was getting commitment in the budget to open up that local training facility here in Mount Vernon at the Skagit Community College. So that when law enforcement hires somebody, they'll be able to get trained here rather than having to drive to South King County, stay in a hotel all week. It's whatever criteria they're able to work out to make that work. We've heard over and over that that's a barrier from our law enforcement folks here in Skagit County. And that was another example of our delegation coming together, circulated a letter and sent it to the budget writers. The governor had said, we want one in Eastern Washington, one Western Washington. Eastern Washington should be in Pasco. Budget doesn't say where the one in Western Washington goes. We really wanted to make sure that when the House and Senate wrote those budgets that it said Mount Vernon. And so we circulated a letter that ultimately got all 9 signatures from Skagit County. We got buy-in from Whatcom and Island and folks in Snohomish as well, and we're able to make that case. I think the budget writers figured a way to split the baby, and now there's going to be 3 regional training facilities, so they didn't have to say no to anybody. So I think that will be one of the most impactful things in terms of law enforcement policies that we were able to do this year. The second piece, and I talked to a number of you about this, the Blake decision on substance abuse, simple possession, was probably the hardest thing that we grappled with this year. If any of you want to go out and have a beer and hear a longer story, I'm happy to do that at another time. What I will say is, I think where we landed, we had bipartisan, bicameral support in a special session. We lost a few votes on either side, but we got the overwhelming majority together around the idea that yes, simple possession of drugs and public use of those drugs in our communities is a crime, but if folks are committing that crime, what we really want to do is help them get into substance abuse recovery. And so we've got a diversion system that I think we're standing up and doing our best to fully fund. That's things like the LEADS program that I think we're all hopeful we can continue to expand. The Recovery Navigator, supportive housing for folks who are in recovery, et cetera. So those kinds of pieces paired with the stick of law enforcement and the risk of gross misdemeanor, but really with the aim to move people towards recovery. And if they complete that diversion and that recovery, we have a commitment that their record will be cleared, so we won't end up with that lasting with somebody and it making it difficult for them to get housing 10 years into the future, et cetera. So that's where we ultimately landed. I think it's a good path. We are not done with it. We're going to have to keep refining. We are in the middle of a different direction on drug policy, and I'm not sure where we didn't get it right, but I'm sure there's stuff that's going to need correcting in the future, and want to make sure you all know we've got an open door to hear about the challenges as those present themselves. And then finally, on police, policy, we did pass the revisions to the pursuit legislation. We've talked about that before. Appreciate the continued collaboration. Chief Kamick was especially helpful in sort of bringing together Skagit County law enforcement leaders to help think through and honestly to grapple with some of the real politic, not just of what's the ideal policy, but what can we actually get passed through the legislature. And so really appreciate the thoughtfulness on that. So turn now just quickly, local projects. I mean, you are all familiar with, more familiar than I am, with the Library Commons. And I'm excited that the legislature was able to give a last little boost. I do apologize, Mayor, for the momentary panic when we put it in a different budget than you were expecting, but I will say it is good to have Dave Paul on as one of our transportation budget writers. He's stepped into that sort of leadership role this year and has been a great ally there. Crisis Stabilization Center, also already mentioned. Appreciate the collaboration between all sectors of the county to come together. It makes our job easy when we're not picking who our favorites are. When everybody else is already in agreement, it makes it easier for us and easier for us to advocate. Couple other smaller things that are nonetheless important. Skagit PUD asked for help with their headquarters building here in Mount Vernon. There's repair and work that needs to be done there, and so we're able to support that. Skagit Community Action has a housing project under development just a couple of blocks from here that we're able to help move the ball forward on because we're in a housing crisis and we need to get those projects done. And then the last thing I'll say is just happy to talk at further length if you would like. But 2 years ago, Washington State took a big step on the Climate Commitment Act, which is a cap and invest program. And it's taken a year and a half to get everything set up, but at the beginning of this year, that has gone into effect. And there's small hiccups in the rollout of that program, as you would anticipate, but I think by and large, from my perspective, it is going well. And so when we're able to fund things like electric vehicle charging infrastructure, those dollars are able to come from a source that's dedicated for climate action. When we're able to make investments in the all-electric Guaymas Island Ferry or in the hybrid electric Washington State ferries that we so desperately need, we're able to make those from this dedicated revenue that we have for climate action. There'll be a lot more to do in the future on that, but we know that we need to be making those kinds of investments, and it is exciting to me to be in a position where we have those opportunities. And the last thing I'll just say, in terms of more broadly in the legislative session, the conflict gets a lot more headlines, and so you might think that Washington State Legislature is a nest of partisan bickering. This was our first year back after the pandemic. We had sort of partial last legislative session. Some of us were back, some weren't, so it's sort of a hybrid. This was our first year where everybody was back, and I will say that it is the most bipartisan feel. I made friends with people who, when I only interacted with them on Zoom, I didn't think I liked them, and I know they didn't like me, but we became friends and were able to work on policy together. That being back in person helped a lot. And every year, OPR does an analysis of our percent bipartisan. We haven't gotten that for this year, but every year since I've been in the legislature, that number has actually been above 90%. More than 90% of the bills we pass have both Republican and Democrat votes on it. If you only look at the headlines, they only cover the stuff we're arguing about, which is a small percentage of what we're actually getting done. And I always try and remind folks of that when we sort of wrap up the legislative session. With that, I will pause and happy to take questions, or if I've overstayed my welcome, we can follow up offline.
I'll just start it real quick, then I'll ask for council, but thank you so much for the support of the Commons Project. it's a huge lift for the city of Mount Vernon. And so that final bit of funding, just kind of struggling to get the grants out and all of that, but to have that support was just, got us over the finish line. And so we just are super grateful for that. And I wanted to just give it kudos to Amanda, your legislative aide, who is so responsive and so helpful. And I just wanted to recognize her too, for her help with all of us, and the communication is amazing.
I would be
so.
100% lost without her help.
So, okay.
And I do want to take you up on the offer for a tour of the Commons while it's under construction.
Of
sometime soon.
course, absolutely. All right. Council, any questions for, okay, start Lon, go ahead.
Thank you.
Start there.
Well, Representative Rammel, first, thank you for your time this afternoon and for your public service. We recognize it's not an easy job, but thank you. One question, though. I understood from what you mentioned, Lieutenant Governor's report mentioned that the state of Washington was 50 last year, 49th this year. What state was first, and why were they first? Are they doing something right? Because I always think about in terms of who's doing it the right way, and could that be done elsewhere?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm happy to go look up that report, and I'll shoot it over to you. There's a ton of recommendations that came out of that report, many of which informed the legislation that we introduced and some of the legislation that we passed this year.
Okay.
I'm happy to share that report with you, though.
I'd appreciate that. Thanks.
I think Connecticut is 50th, though, if that's okay.
All right, any questions?
If
Oh, go ahead.
If I could
Let's hold on.
quickly, I just wanted to say thank you for your support of the city of Mount Vernon, but also for the stabilization center facility. Thank you so much for that. But most importantly, it's what you said at the very end, and that is 90% of the bills passed were bipartisan. And I think that is so critical in today's environment to get that information out there. So thank you for sharing that.
In the spirit of the bipartisanness, I should mention, I meant to mention when I talked about the stabilization center, Carolyn Eslick was the lead on getting that funding into the budget. The rest of us sort of sign on and send a support letter and say it's a good idea when the budget writers ask us, but she really put together the paperwork and put that ask in. It's in the 39th district, so that's appropriate, but it supports the whole community, and happy to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, awesome. Thank you, say Mary?
Yes, well, as my friend Amanda always says, Rep Rammel. Hello, Rep Rammel. When you talked about the housing and rent stabilization, I have come to realize that that needs to apply to manufactured home parks.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that that does in what you're talking about, because to me, that's the next crisis, is that those rents just keep going up. Most of these people, I mean, that was their first affordable home. So as the rents keep going up, they're going to be priced out. And where are they going to go?
Yep.
So that is a big concern of mine right now. So I look forward to discussing that with you further, but just know that that's on my radar.
100% in agreement. Whether it's an apartment or manufactured housing, the impact of that displacement is the same on folks. But for folks with manufactured housing, they've got, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in that place also. That's very difficult to move if they can't make that rent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Iris, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Rep. Ramo, for your time and come and talk to us about this specifically issue is housing. And I want to be just a little bit different than my colleagues. I want to be more hopeful and dreaming for those great projects. Just last week when the governor came here in our community, we took him to the fields and he saw how our farm workers' families, they work. And he gave us his word, then he's going to be working hard to bring affordable housing for farm workers' families here in Mount Vernon. Then I'm gonna keep his word inside of my soul, and just expecting a dream come true. One day we are going to have affordable housing for for farm workers' families here in Mount Vernon. And thank you for your great job you're doing there, and my gratitude for you for your great support for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to working with you and with the governor to get this done next year.
I'm sorry?
I look forward to working
yeah.
with you and the governor to
Thank
get
you.
this done
Thank
next
you very
year.
much.
It's good to have
Yes.
him on
I
our side.
appreciate it, and I don't have a doubt you will. Thank you.
All right. Counselor, Gary?
Yeah, Alex, I want to really, I really appreciate how fast you got back to at least my email when you were right in the middle of the session, you know, especially was dealing with some of the police stuff. I think a lot of times I just assume that he's busy and, you know, I might get an email after the session, but I mean, it was like, I pushed the send button and it was like, there was an automatic response. And maybe you got it set up, but it didn't look like that, so I appreciate you, getting back quick.
Yeah, no promises for that pace every time.
No, I know.
Honestly, like,
You must have had the phone right.
if you don't get it done right then, you
You're
know,
right.
if you put it off, you never get to it. So,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and thanks for being in touch, and please do always reach out.
Thank you.
Any other? All right, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the
coming.
opportunity, and
Appreciate
again,
it.
yeah, let's just always stay in touch. We do better work for the people in the community we serve when we're coordinated and the right hand and the left hand are talking to each other.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Right. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, moving on in our agenda. Item B tonight is a closed record public hearing. This is regarding an expansion of a non-conforming structure, Plan number 22-0395. Mary Ann Manville Ailes is our Development Services planner, and she's here to present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and with any luck, I keep promising this, but with any luck, this will be the last one of these simple, easy ones that you see. We actually do have a draft of the change to the ordinance that we're taking to Planning Commission next week, and our goal is to have that to council by the end of August, 1st of September. And we're actually telling applicants now that we're giving them the option of waiting, because obviously this will be a significant time and cost savings to them if they wait, and they're really excited about it. So I'm optimistic that you're not going to be having to see me present this same presentation any more times. But we are tonight here for Plan 22-0395, the Bannis Garage and Storage Addition Special Permission. And as you can see, this is located at 1505 South 6th Street. And I'll go to the picture first. It's a garage addition, and you can see that where the car's parked here, that the garage is going to go like right over top of the car. And there's going to be a little bit of storage space that is with it as well. So the proposal is for a 504 square foot addition to an existing single-family residence, and it would include 336 square feet of garage and 168 square feet of storage. And this special permission is necessary because the house does not meet the required combined side setbacks. And the garage addition will be consistent with all the setbacks. So staff recommends that council follow the hearing examiner recommendation and move to adopt the accompanying resolution to approve the expansion of a non-conforming structure for 504 square feet garage storage addition to an existing single-family residence. That's it.
Any questions for Mary Ann on this particular item? Okay. We do have a closed record public hearing, so I'll open the closed record public hearing. If there's anyone that is wishing to speak, and I don't see any, we'll close the closed record public hearing. This would be a resolution, and be resolution 1036.
I would move the adoption of resolution 1036.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by Mark and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary. We're looking forward to that Ordinance coming back, all right. Item C tonight is the approval of an agreement with Catholic Community Services, and this is Peter Donovan, who is our Special Projects Manager, is going to present this item.
Thank you,
Peter.
Mayor. Hello again, Council. Council, as you know, the city participates in the state's Affordable Housing Sales Tax Revenue Sharing Program, and there is no working acronym for that, which is why we often refer to it as 1406 money from House Bill 1406. Participation in this plan allows the city to receive back a share of its sales tax from the state for purposes that can include funding the costs of that are associated with new units of affordable housing. The proposed draft agreement before you tonight is really just formalizing what council has already approved, which is committing your future 1406 money to the operations at Martha's Place, which is operated by Catholic Community Services of Western Washington. And so with that, staff is recommending that council authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement with Catholic Community Services of Western Washington to commit the city's 1406 funding to Catholic for the purpose of operating a permanent supportive housing operation at Martha's Place.
All right, any questions for Peter on this particular item?
I'll make a motion that council authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement with Catholic Community Services regarding our 1406 funding.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion by Melissa, we'll do a second by Mary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, council. We've talked about that for a long time, and it's kind of awesome to see it, money put to use, so. All right, item D tonight, it's the approval of street closures. And this is Jennifer Brenner, our special event, our special event.
Take that title.
You can be that too, Jennifer.
Do that too.
Our Parks and Enrichment Director will present. Jennifer.
Good evening, council. Staff is recommending city council approve the following street closure request for upcoming special events. We have Sunday, June 18th, there's a Father's Day celebration that is scheduled for Edgewater Park. And we are looking at closing South Ball Street, and that would make it so that it's much more pedestrian-friendly, and make the ingress and egress to Edgewater Park off of Barker Street. And then on Tuesday, July 4th, the fabulous 4th of July fireworks show will be at Edgewater Park, and that same street closure is what is being recommended to be in effect. That's something that we did work up with our Public Works Department and to come up with a good traffic plan over there for Edgewater Park for when we have events over there. And closing Ball Street was something that we tried last 4th of July that worked really well. And so going forward with large events that happen at Edgewater Park, we are going to follow that same traffic plan and instill that with other events that come up. The other two is on Saturday and Sunday. We have July 8th and 9th, the Highland Games that occurs out there at Edgewater Park. They just do a one-way street closure of Ball Street, so people can leave using Ball Street and turn right to go over the bridge. But the only way in is coming in on Barker Street. So it's turning that into a one-way, closing half of the street there of Ball Street. And then on Saturday, August 19th, Temper Habits Brewing Company is celebrating their 3rd anniversary, and they did this same event last year, and they're looking at closing down Gate Street between 1st and 2nd, and doing they expand their food service and beverage service to the outside and have a band. So those are the 4 street closures in front of you this evening. Happy to answer any questions that you might have on any of them.
Any questions for Jennifer on these?
Go ahead, Juan.
Go ahead. Hearing no questions, I'll motion for the approval of the 4 street closures mentioned on the agenda item.
All right, thank
I'll
you.
second that.
All right, motion by Juan and a second by Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Hope council didn't mind that we lumped those all in together. Okay, we want to be efficient. All right. Item E tonight is the approval of the collective bargaining agreement, our CBA, for the Commissioned Police Services Guild. Our Human Resources Director, Aaron Cater, is here for this item. Aaron.
Good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. I'm here, as the mayor said, to speak about the collective bargaining agreement with our commissioned police officer guild. Their contract expired at the end of last year. We began negotiations of last year, went through the beginning of this year. We went through mediation and finally came to a tentative agreement. The tentative agreement includes a 6% salary adjustment for 2023 and a 4.5% increase for 2024. It also increased some specialty pays for our employees. It increased longevity to be in line with our comparables. And we got some really great language that allows the chief more flexibility to create schedule changes. So it's a great contract for both sides. The approximate cost is about $325,000, which is within the budget for this year.
Any questions for Aaron on this contract?
No, like to thank Aaron and the guild for working together to get this done. Took a little longer than we wanted to, but we did get it done. And I moved the adoption of the collective bargaining agreement with the Commissioned Police Service Guild.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by Mark and a second by Melissa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Any
opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item F tonight. This is the approval of a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, with the Commissioned Police Services Guild. And again, Aaron is here. Aaron.
Good evening again. This is in regards to our park ranger position. In the past, the park ranger has been a non-commissioned police officer with limited authority. The Criminal Justice Training Center recently stated that some parks law enforcement academies can be recognized as equivalent to the basic law enforcement academy, and that some of the PLEA graduates could be recognized as fully commissioned law enforcement officers if they take an equivalency exam. In April of 2023, our parks ranger, our non-commissioned parks ranger, did take that equivalency exam and passed. So in order for him to be fully commissioned, we have to have a fully commissioned position, which means that position moves from the non-commissioned bargaining unit into the commissioned police bargaining unit. So we worked with the union to come up with some guidelines for how to do that. We worked on the wages and what parts of the collective bargaining agreement would apply to the park ranger, because we want the park ranger to remain a park ranger, but recognizing that they have authority to do other things if needed. So that's what we did. The wage would be 80% of a commissioned police officer. It'll roughly cost about $1,200 this year to make that move. And again, it's a great benefit to the city to have him as a fully commissioned officer.
All right, questions for Aaron on this particular item?
I'd like to recommend that we authorize the mayor to sign the MOU between the city and Police Services Guild to create a commissioned park ranger position as stated.
All right, thank you.
Second.
A motion by Mary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank
Aaron,
you.
thanks for all the work on that. All right, item G tonight is the approval of an agreement. This is with Trantech Engineering LLC, and Bill Bullock, our city engineer, is here for this item. Bill.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So I'll, excuse me, I'm having some allergy things. I'll read the memo into the record. The recommended action, staff recommends entering into a professional services agreement with Trantech Engineering to conduct a feasibility/investigative design to propose their solutions for the damage to the Eaglemont structural earth wall culvert. Approximately 200 feet north of Bakerview Court, there is a structural earth wall and a 16-foot wide drainage culvert spanning a large ravine on Eaglemont Drive. The wall is about 25 feet high from the culvert to the surface of the road, built from vertically stacked gabion baskets. 2 years ago, the city investigated a reported concern that the sidewalk on top of the wall was heaving and tilting. At that time, the wall had no apparent settlement issues, and the sidewalk movement was thought to be very localized, requiring only remedial repair. Since that time, 2 years have now elapsed, and there is evidence of major crushing and settlement in the gabion baskets themselves in the middle of the wall height, which is likely to cause the sidewalk of the sidewalk rotation and settlement. Trantec Engineering is the firm the city has used to perform the structural bridge load ratings in the city. Teamed with Geoengineers Incorporated. They have the expertise to perform the investigation and analysis to properly assess the conditions causing the impacts to the structure and develop solution options to make permanent repairs. This feasibility phase will inform the city on how to best proceed with designing a permanent solution over the winter season and prepare to implement the repair with a construction contract as early as the summer of 2024 or 2025. The feasibility phase for this design is not to exceed $34,925. And I will be happy to answer any questions if council has any.
Any questions for Bill on this particular item?
No, this was something we talked about in committee here last month, I believe it was.
That's correct.
And we definitely need to take care of this situation. We're gonna have some injury issues if we don't get this taken care of. So I would move the approval of the agreement with Trantec Engineering.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by Mark and a second by Mary. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item H is to set a public hearing date for a 2024 to 2029 six-year transportation improvement plan, or the TIP. So, Bill, this is for you again.
Thank you. So the goal here is to set a public hearing date for the adoption of the Mount Vernon 2024-2029 six-year transportation improvement program. State law, RCW 3577-010, requires that each year the city adopt a six-year transportation improvement program, or TIP. The TIP, or TIP, is designed to identify projects that accomplish the goals of the city's transportation program. Projects outlined in the program provide estimates of costs, priority, schedule, and a financial plan forecasted over the next 6 years. The financial plan provides cost projections matched to revenue sources such as tax revenue, grants, loans, and private sources to demonstrate that the funding for the TIP is feasible, although long-term funding sources may not be secured. The draft TIP will be presented for discussion, highlighting projects slated for years 1 through 3 and new projects added to the program during the latest planning cycle. Any modifications to the draft TIP will be made and brought forward in a final version for adoption at a public hearing scheduled for June 28th, 2023. Sorry. Any questions that I can answer?
All right, any questions for Bill on this?
I will move to authorize the mayor to direct staff to schedule a notice for public hearing on June 28th for the consideration and adoption of the 2024 through 2029 Mount Vernon six-year TIP.
All right, thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by Mary and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, item I tonight is the approval of a resolution. This is regarding our police canine vector, and our police chief, Chris Kamick, is here for this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. I'm here tonight to request council authorize the mayor to approve the retirement and surplus of police canine vector. I'd like to digress just for a moment here. Today was Officer Zach Wright's last working day with the Mount Vernon Police Department, and he will fully retire at the end of this month, June 30th. He will have served Mount Vernon for 28 years as a police officer here. Zach is a local kid, grew up in Skagit County, graduated from Burlington Edison High School. I think you'll appreciate that, council member. He came to us through the Canine Corey program, 1994. That's his pathway into the police department. He served in a variety of capacities: criminal investigator, course, patrol officer, he's been a lead officer. He served on both our tactical team as well as our crisis negotiation team. He's held various instructor roles, but probably his most impactful role that he's had for the department as well as for Skagit County and across the state is in the field of canine. He has served as a canine officer for 18 out of his 28 years. And there's a lot of positions in policing that are there, but in my opinion, a canine officer has got to be the hardest one that's there. They work straight nights, they go home, and their partner, obviously goes to bed, but you got 24/7 care and walking and obedience, and it's always on. And I saw Zach on many times. He would be off at anywhere between 3 and 6 in the morning, and somebody's calling him back out at 10 a.m. to run a couple-mile track. And he's had either zero sleep or only a few hours of sleep, and he is, absolutely dedicated to that profession. Just to give you kind of an idea of how well he's done, his first dog was Luther, which we brought on in 2005. And during his 9 years of service, Luther had 1,136 deployments, 301 arrests, 200 evidence fines, 160 agency assists, and numerous public demonstrations, either in our schools, our parks programs, etc. And tonight, we're talking about retiring Vector. And Zach retired Luther in 2014 and turned right back around and picked up Vector. And he has served 8 years with the Mount Vernon Police Department with 1,194 deployments, 456 arrests, 286 agency assists, 144 drug warrants that were the result of a drug dog sniff in order to have the probable cause for the warrant. But this is the one, excuse me, I picked up Bill's cough. This is the one I think is most significant. Out of 1,194 deployments, in only 31 of those cases did he have to use the dog in a use of force application, so less than 2.5%. And I think there's a public perception a lot of times that with a canine that it's all force use and the dog is just used to apply, to the human being, if you will, or whatever. And it's just not the case. And Zach not only did that as an operator out there in the field doing it, but he took that expertise that he had developed. He was a master trainer at the Washington State level. He has trained the majority of the dogs that are here and up in Skagit County, and he was on the work group for the model canine policy for the state of Washington as well. So his contributions around canine are quite significant. And I said this earlier, and I'll say it publicly too. I was a canine Corey before I got on the department, and so I was around a lot of dogs and handlers, and there's a lot of really good handlers in this, and there's a couple of great ones. And Zach is literally one of the great handlers that we've ever had come out of Skagit County. He's just a dog whisperer. At the end of the day, he just really is. So anyway, with that said, the city's purchased Vector in 2015 to serve as a canine generalist for the police department. And because Zach is retiring and Vector's physical age and degenerative medical condition, the department finds that Vector is no longer able to perform the essential duties. Vector was removed from field service today, and I'm requesting the council approve authorizing the mayor to declare Vector retired from service and to authorize her to sell Vector to Officer Zach Wright for the sum of $1, which has already been paid.
Any questions for Chris on this particular item?
I just have a comment, if I could. First off, I'd like to thank Zach for his service to our city and the greater county. I want to thank his family for sharing him with us for all of those years. And lastly, I want to thank Vector for that marvelous little nose of his that was leading the way. So thank you, Zach, and your family. And with that, if nobody else has any comments, I'd just like to make a motion that council approve the surplus of a male German Shepherd, Vector, police canine.
This
I
would,
would second that.
and we resolution 1037, sorry.
Oh, I would also say, I can't even believe it's been 11 years already. remember asking about how big a teeth that dog had, so they could show us. I know he didn't want to hear about that.
I remember them bringing Vector in and showing us his drug
Sniffing.
skills.
Oh, yeah,
Where
we
they
were
hide
sniffing
stuff
around out here.
council
It's
chambers and-
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
No.
But Zach's done a great job, and Vector's been a good service.
He also was awarded 2 silver medals of valor during his canine service that was there, and both of them were really, really, really high-risk incidents that he used with the dog. Of course, that's why he awarded it, but that's pretty unique as well.
I'm a little bummed. I know Vector was here earlier. I was hoping he might come in and, hang around with us for a while, but that's okay.
I was actually going to invite him here tonight, but since today was his last day, I didn't want to give him another distraction so he could be with his family tonight and stuff. But perhaps in the future, we could bring him back and do that.
Well, I just meant the dog.
Oh, yeah. That's what everybody wants, the dog, not the dog.
All right,
Good.
so that's a resolution, that's a motion by Melissa and a second by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last up tonight, item J is our approval of a resolution. This is regarding petty cash in our police department, and Doug Gillespie, our finance director, is here. Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, council members. So city staff is requesting that council to approve a resolution increasing the police department's petty cash fund from $200 to $400. So city council did adopt a resolution back in 1983 establishing the petty cash fund for the police department at $200. But with the development of the integrated outreach services, there's now a need to increase that amount. It's common practice to make purchases utilizing the city purchasing cards. However, there are times when it is not practical. For example, the iOS team utilizes petty cash in assisting with various items that a purchase card cannot be used for, including but not limited to out-of-state birth certificates, assisting in deposits for housing, etc. So the police department now has 4 iOS team members who are assisting clients. Increasing the base amount in petty cash will allow more funds to be available as needed. So city staff is requesting council to approve resolution number 1038, increasing the police department's petty cash fund from $200 to $400.
Questions for Doug on this item?
Seems pretty logical to me. I'd like to move that we approve resolution 1038 to increase the police department's petty cash from $200 to $400.
Thank you. All right, motion by Mary and a second by Iris. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
We have completed our agenda items tonight. I will ask our city attorney if there's a need for an executive session this evening.
Yes, I'd invite the mayor and members of city council to enter into an executive session for discussions with legal counsel regarding enforcement action, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding such discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or adverse financial consequence to the city pursuant to RCW 4230 subsection 1101I. Executive session shall last 10 minutes. It is currently 8:36. We would convene back at 8:46 with no final action after.
All right, with that, then we'll be adjourned in executive session at 8:37.